and the general feeling was that Gowon would steer the economy to a strong position. At the same time as Gowon was making his moves internally, God was blessing Nigeria externally. Nigeria had joined OPEC in 1971. At the time, Bonny Light, Nigeria's oil, was priced at $2.65 a barrel. On October 5, 1973, Syria and Egypt attacked Israel, starting the Yom Kippur War. Western countries publicly supported Israel, prompting the Arab countries to impose an embargo. Overnight, 7% of the world's oil production was turned off. The oil price promptly shot up to $12.60 a barrel. Nigeria pumped up its production and reaped windfall gains. With Nigeria experiencing the perfect storm, the stage was set for resurgence. Unfortunately, the military proved to be just as bad as the politicians had been. The windfall oil revenues were squandered and used to provide luxurious trappings for the elite. The shares of foreign companies that were indigenized found their ways into the hands of the elite and government parastatals rather than the masses. This was because the government, top-ranking officials, and already wealthy families were the only ones with the capital and access to buy shares. In fact, the wealth of several well-known Nigerian families can be traced back to the preferred role they were given at the time of the indigenization decree. Incidentally, most of the wealthy Igbos missed out on the windfall. Why was this? Well, it turned out that Awolowo, as finance minister, was not as magnanimous as Gowon. Awo was responsible at the end of the war for giving back to the Igbos all monies they had left in their accounts before the war. He made the decision that all Igbos will be given £20 each, no matter what amount they had previously had, pending investigations into their actual balances. These investigations never took place, so it meant that at the end of the war, a large number of Igbos who had been wealthy had to start from scratch. So when the indigenization decree came round, none of them had the capital to participate. Despite all these negative events, and the magnitude of the mismanagement and extent of corruption that was surfacing, Gowon would probably have survived on his popularity. However, he made a crucial mistake by announcing on his Independence Day broadcast in 1974 that he did not believe the country was ready for civilian rule, and he would be postponing the planned 1976 handover. 9 months later, he was overthrown in a bloodless coup.
There was a bloodless coup today in Nigeria, which is Black Africa's biggest and richest nation and the world's 8th largest oil producer. The overthrow of strongman Major General Yakubu Gowon reportedly was engineered by the head of his personal bodyguards. Gowon received word of the coup while at a meeting of the Organization of African Unity in Uganda. He would say only, "There's nothing to worry about." Gowon, who led a 1966 military coup and put down the bloody Biafran civil war 6 years ago, had been confronted by growing student and labor unrest and charges of government corruption. Last October, he went back on a pledge to restore civilian rule in Nigeria next year.
The coup of July 1975 was very different from previous coups in two key respects. First, it was completely bloodless. Secondly, it destroyed discipline in the military by making it obvious that anyone with the guts and influence, no matter their rank, could take power for themselves. The man chosen by the coup plotters to lead Nigeria was Murtala Muhammad, the same man who had been behind the 1966 counter-coup. To ensure he did not perpetuate himself in power indefinitely, the coup plotters made him share power with two other officers, Brigadiers Obasanjo and Danjuma. In addition, he was forced to appoint specific people into key positions. A great number of the men sworn in that day have continued to rule Nigeria till today.
I, Brigadier Theophilus Yakubu Danjuma, being appointed a member of the Supreme Military Council, swear that I will not directly or indirectly reveal such matters as shall be debated in the council, in the said council, and committed to my secrecy. So help me God.
I, Captain Olufemi Olumide, being appointed a member of the Supreme Military Council, swear that I will not directly or indirectly reveal such matters as shall be debated in the said council and committed to my secrecy. So help me God.
Once his fellow conspirators had been rewarded with positions in his Supreme Military Council, Murtala proceeded to speak to the country.
Fellow Nigerians, events of the past few years have indicated that despite our great human and material resources, the government has not been able to fulfill the legitimate expectations of our people. Nigeria has been left to drift. This situation, if not arrested, would inevitably have resulted in chaos and even bloodshed. In the endeavor to build a strong, united, and virile nation, Nigerians have shed much blood. The thought of further bloodshed, for whatever reasons, must, I'm sure, be revolting to our people.
Murtala was dead serious. With amazing speed, he announced the forced retirement of all senior military officers, a mass purge of the civil service and parastatals, probes of former government officials, the movement of the state capital to a better and more central location. He changed Nigeria's foreign policy to non-alignment and made it clear he would only make decisions which benefited Africa. He also announced a return to civil rule by 1979. To ensure public perception stayed positive, he announced a low-profile policy where the military was to no more act in an ostentatious manner. He himself decided to stay in his personal residence in Ikoyi rather than move to Dodon Barracks. It was clear Murtala meant business, and the public welcomed him with open arms. Within 3 months, he became the most popular Nigerian ruler of all time.
By the timely intervention of the armed forces, the people of Nigeria have another opportunity to start again in the task of rebuilding the nation.
It was obvious to the Nigerians who watched the broadcast that day. This man was different. This man was serious. This man could make the country change. Even the US government had respect for Murtala. A classified memo from August 1975 described him as an erratic, vainglorious, impetuous, corrupt, vindictive, intelligent, articulate, and daring Hausa. The report went on to point out that the US maintained its ties with Gowon, as after another coup or two, probably bloody, he might be the only acceptable leader left. It finished with an interesting suggestion that Murtala's takeover had potentially created a precedent which could usher in more coups. The author of that report was unfortunately correct. On the 13th of February 1976, Nigeria had its fourth coup. Murtala Muhammad was assassinated on his way to work in a car without escorts. Gunmen had riddled his car with bullets while he was sitting in the famous Lagos Go-Slow. His bullet-riddled car can still be seen in the National Museum in Lagos today. The plotters had also planned to assassinate Obasanjo and Danjuma, but for various reasons were not successful. Hence, Danjuma was able to organize a response force led by Colonel Babangida to crush the coup plotters. With Murtala dead, a replacement was required. The North were keen that he be succeeded by a northerner, so the job was offered to Danjuma. Danjuma refused, so Obasanjo was asked to take Murtala's position. To ensure balance of power, a Northern Supreme Military Council member, Lieutenant Colonel Shehu Musa Yaradua, was promoted to take Obasanjo's place. Once the housekeeping was done, they set about bringing the coup plotters to justice.
The coup was originally conceived as a major's plot in Kaduna during a conversion exercise which brought a number of these officers together. An inner circle of 3 started the discussions. Their main grievances at the time centered around the conversion exercise itself, which they considered rather tough. This group, headed by Major Dabang, was expanded to include other similar disgruntled elements. Simultaneously, Bisalla on his own has started a similar group, also mainly composed of disgruntled elements of the ranks of colonels and lieutenant colonels. The two groups soon got to know of their mutual existence. It was around this time that Dimka traveled to Madrid on official duties. He was then invited to spend a few days in London on his way back from Madrid for further discussions. While there, Dimka met and held discussions with General Gawan, who told him that everything was ready and he, Dimka, would be fully briefed by Bisalla on his return to Nigeria. Based on irrefutable evidence obtained by the Board of Inquiry, Gawan has already been asked to come home and defend himself.
The nation was of course shocked that officers of the stature of Gowon and Bisalla could be involved in this coup attempt. Bisalla had been the only person from Gowon's military council who had been allowed to stay in Murtala's government. He had even sat next to Murtala during the first broadcast to the nation. Gowon, on the other hand, had walked quietly off stage after the coup against him and had been living in exile in London. It was hard to believe that he was the type of person that could support a bloody coup. Whatever the truth was, the new rulers of Nigeria were intent on making sure someone paid for Murtala's death.
The Supreme Military Council has been meeting to consider, among other things, the conclusions of the military tribunal appointed by the federal military government to try those involved in the abortive coup of 13th February. The Council has confirmed the sentences passed by the tribunal. Those condemned to death by firing squad have been executed today. Those These include Lieutenant Colonel B.S. Dimka and Mr. J.D. Gumwalk, two of the principal actors of the abortive coup.
The coup plotters were killed by firing squad in full public glare on the beach. With them dead, the nation mourned its hero. Obasanjo committed himself to fulfilling Muritala's transition program, and in 1979 handed power back to the civilians. He then retired to his farm, and the army went back to the barracks. The story of Nigeria from 1979 to 1999 is more or less the same as that from 1960 to 1979. In both cases, the civilians ruled for 5 years, and during that time, destroyed the trust put by their constituents in them through their corruption and infighting. The military then took over to, in quotes, save the country, but then found that they had to fight their fellow officers to retain power, and in the end, became just like the politicians they had kicked out. Given these similarities, there's no point analyzing in detail the events from 1979 onwards. It is interesting, however, to see some of their impacts.
I, Sheikh Usman Aliyu Shagari, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I will discharge my duties to the best of my ability, faithfully, and in accordance with the Constitution.
The Second Republic started just like the first had, with considerable fanfare and hopeful expectation by the masses. The man selected to lead Nigeria was Alhaji Shehu Shagari, a 54-year-old Muslim from the north who had served under both the Tafawa Balewa and Gowon governments. His running mate was Alex Ekweme, a wealthy 47-year-old Igbo man who had made his riches independently as an architect. From the outside, this northern and eastern partnership seemed to reflect the emergence of a new and progressive Nigeria. The outside perspective is rarely correct. Astute observers of the Second Republic could clearly see the dangerous parallels between it and the aborted First Republic.
You know, there are many dangerous people in Africa. The president of Nigeria is dangerous. Shagari is dangerous. As a person himself, he's weak. But his surroundings, his administration is dangerous. He is not as dynamic to be as dangerous, but his setup is dangerous. Because they all say he's great and everything, but underneath, he's spoiling the whole continent, you understand? So he's dangerous. You know, he has nothing to offer, he doesn't make big statements as such, but it's in Nigeria they come and do apartheid committee, apartheid this, you know, they're meeting about Namibia in Nigeria, everything Nigeria takes on its head. You see, but this country is a Gestapo country. How can Nigeria be talking about South Africa? You see, South Africa is better than Nigeria. I know so. But look, we are saying whites are mistreating blacks in South Africa. Okay, that is bad. That is racism. They have a reason to do it. Then blacks are mistreating blacks in Nigeria. What's the reason? That's worse. Police beat people on the streets like dogs.
From the mid-70s, a time where those who had the power to cause change had decided to adopt the "if you can't beat them, join them" attitude. Fela stood out as a beacon for disenfranchised Nigerians. His mixture of funky beats and strongly opinionated, politically charged lyrics filled a void for ordinary Nigerians who lacked a voice. He went further than any others dared in naming names and pointing out the injustice in Nigeria.
Elections to Ringo, opposite plan them very well. Elections to Ringo, opposite plan them very well. Him take all politicians, we rule Nigeria before. Disable politicians, we spoil Nigeria before. Opposite carry all of them they there now. Enough. The young Africans, they get 2 ears for hair, them get 2 eyes too. Them they see the thing where they happen on them, they hear them too. Few people they fat with the big money and the rest they hungry. Me I challenge your boss or Jordan, while you're in there all the time. Make him carry me go when he cut type to open book for him. Now why your government we do? Help by me, oh, now give my government we do. Yeah, paripa, oh, a party government we do. Help by me, oh, we give money, paddy, arranging it. Why yo, paddy, arranging it. We give money, why yo, add them together, give me the answer.
As an average Nigerian during the Second Republic, you were like a victim of a cruel practical joke. You had just ushered out one set of corrupt leaders, only to receive a worse punch. And this time you had actually voted for them.
What I'm going to sing now is one of my explanations of why Africa is low today. We all know that Europeans taught the Africans what they know today, what we use for our governmental processes. We all know about democracy. I condemn democracy now, because it's no more democracy. I write a tune about democracy, and I call the tune TDTMN. Teacher, don't teach me nonsense.
Fela was right. Democracy was not working. But in the country that Nigeria had become, you do not make these kinds of statements and remain untouched. Fela had become a real pain in the neck to the government, so they ensured life was difficult for him by continuously harassing him and his people and periodically throwing him in prison. Despite the persecution, Fela never wavered from his mission of being a thorn in the side of the government.
One thing I want to assure them, if they think I'm going to change or compromise in my attitude, in my way of life, or in my expression, or in my goal towards politics, they are making me stronger. And I'm much more stronger now. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised that I'm so well so quickly. The kind of beating I got, Then you want to see the police beating. It's terrible. I'll show you. You must see it. Look at it. Yeah. See? Look my ears. Right out of my ears, man. See? Bad. All over my body, man. Top to bottom. They beat the shit out of me. But I say I didn't die. Because my name is Anikulapo. I have death in my pouch. I can't die. They can't kill me. 1, 2,
Despite the
3,
continuing irritation from Fela, external events had brought more pressing issues for the government. Nigeria had entered the beginnings of a painful recession triggered by a slide in the oil price due to a worldwide glut. The slide put severe strain on the foreign exchange earnings of the Second Republic. However, for political reasons, the government did not immediately reduce spending. Instead, it borrowed, thinking things would normalize quickly. No one could have forecast that the oil price decline would last for the next 10 years. So by 1983, Nigeria was learning the hard way what it meant to be an oil state. Its foreign currency reserves had declined from $10 billion to $1 billion. Foreign debt had ballooned to $15 billion, and inflation was running at 50%. Even middle-class Nigerians began to feel the pain of recession. Despite this, the elite continued to live lives of unimaginable luxury, buying houses abroad and opening Swiss bank accounts. So to divert attention from this, the Shagari government decided to take some drastic action.
Tonight, West Africa continues to be economically and politically disrupted by the mass movement of workers expelled from Nigeria. Almost 900,000 have already returned to Ghana alone. Most of the illegal migrant workers who've been expelled from Nigeria have been making their way along what used to be known as the Slave Coast, through Benin and Togo towards Ghana. The vast number had left Ghana in search of work when Nigerian oil revenues were up and cheap labor was needed. In Benin, the emphasis is on keeping the workers moving. There is little food in Benin or Togo, and often a shortage of water. Sometimes the convoy stretches for 300 miles. Many workers had to sell all their possessions to get this far. Taxi and truck drivers are accused of charging outrageous prices, but many workers believe that staying behind in Nigeria meant prison or even worse.
And they are killing many people. If you don't go, your life is at risk. Whether you like it or not, you should leave.
The Nigerian president, Shehu Shagari, has returned in the midst of all this from an overseas visit. He's made no public comment, despite international pressure for restraint, and most Nigerians appear to support the government's decision. At this rally, for example, the illegal foreign workers were blamed for adding to tribal unrest, soaring crime rates in the cities, not to mention taking jobs Nigerians want now that the bottom has fallen out of the oil-fed economy.
Unfortunately, it wasn't enough just to kick out the foreigners.
Meredith Vieira has the story tonight of about 50 students from abroad who are learning more than they bargained for, a lesson in world economics and small-town American hospitality.
They are Nigerians who came here to study and now find themselves stranded.
What do we do? There's no money. How can you live?
Tony Lott came to the University of Wisconsin-Stout 8 months ago on a Nigerian government scholarship, but his scholarship money has never shown up. Alugabi has been working on his master's degree for 2 years. With just 2 semesters left to go, his money has stopped coming. There are 50 Nigerian students here in the same boat. No funds for tuition, for housing, for food.
Before I left home, it was an understood situation that the government would take care of my stay here. Now, if they said they were not going to take care of my stay, definitely I wouldn't have even, left Nigeria in the first place.
We may be in Menominee, Wisconsin, but this is really a story about the worldwide economic crisis. A story about oil-rich countries like Nigeria and what happens when oil prices drop and the supply of dollars begins to dwindle. The Nigerian government has had to tighten up on its foreign exchange. What that means here is a group of foreign students who can't get money out of their country, so they can't pay their bills.
We're talking about $700,000 for that group of people.
And that's more money than this university can absorb. Nationwide, Nigerian students owe some $87 million in tuition and living expenses to hundreds of colleges. We've tried talking to the Nigerian embassy, Ellen Lanahan says, but every time we call,
someone will say, there isn't any money in the country right now. I don't foresee when there's going to be any money, but don't tell the students.
Still, the university says beginning next week, it will only register those students who have cash up front. That leaves people like Tony Lott and Alugabi with no money to get home, worried about deportation, and wondering about a government which stranded them when all they did was come here to study.
I would argue that Nigeria's abandonment of its brightest youth in a foreign country was directly responsible for pushing them into crime and ushered in the 419 problem we have today. Anyway, back in Nigeria, the situation had continued to deteriorate. Matters came to a head in 1983 when new elections were held. Shagari's government, despite the clear evidence of corruption, mismanagement, and oppression, was re-elected in a landslide victory. It was plainly obvious that the elections had been rigged. But who had the power to do anything about it?
We back, we back, we back, we back. Put your hands up. We back again. Keep your hands up. We back, we back.
And now Nigeria, which is the most heavily populated country in Africa. General Muhammad Buhari, who led the successful coup in Nigeria on Saturday, has now said that in the future, crooked civil servants would be put in jail without what he called the nonsense of legal proceedings. Other than radio broadcasts, Nigeria is still pretty cut off. The military men have cited mismanagement of the nation's economy as the reason for their move. They say that oil-rich Nigeria has become a beggar state. As Steve Shepard reports, a bad economy was where this coup began.
Nigeria today owes foreign creditors more than $14 billion. Unemployment is rampant. Civil servants have been going without pay. Last year, in an effort to deal with rising discontent, President Shagari expelled some 1.7 million Ghanaians who had been brought into Nigeria as workers but began competing with locals for jobs as the economy started to decline. And last week, Shagari announced a new austerity budget which would have cut food subsidies and other government programs. That apparently was too much for the military, whose leaders believed Nigerian civilian rulers were not just incompetent but corrupt. It overthrew Shagari and promised to clean up the government. Nigeria's new leader, General Muhammad Buhari, is known to Western observers. He is considered intelligent, conservative, and free from corruption, a Western-oriented pragmatist. For that reason, U.S. officials have hope that the new Nigerian government will work to maintain good relations with the United States. Because of its influence in Africa and because of its oil, those relations are considered extremely important here. Steve Shepard, ABC News, the State Department.
Watch me! Fraud, indiscipline, corruption, squandermania, misuse and abuse of public office for self or group aggrandizement, which had assumed debilitating proportions in the last few years, will be dealt with ruthlessly, no matter whoever may be involved.
And I'm super bad. I got soul. And I'm super bad.
The private sector has also its share of crimes against the Nigerian economy, especially in the area of the distribution of basic commodities. Reports reaching us confirm large-scale hoarding of commodities. I have already warned that hoarding will not be tolerated. Gentlemen, I must point out that your assignment as military governors is a service posting. You are therefore subject to redeployment at any time as the exigencies of our calling may dictate.
When Buhari said ruthlessly, he meant it. During the 41-year-old Major General's time in power, Nigerians came to understand what it meant to live in fear. With his partner, 41-year-old Major General Tunde Ediago, a program to save the country was designed. They called it the War Against Indiscipline, with emphasis on war.
I want you to bear in mind the need to emphasize self-discipline and leadership by good example. Begin by drawing public attention to little but important everyday manifestations of indiscipline, such as rushing into buses, driving on the wrong side of the road, littering the streets, parks, and dwelling compounds, cheating, taking undue advantage of scarcity to inflate prices for quick monetary gains, constituting ourselves into public nuisances, working without commitment, and devoting little or no time to the upbringing of our children. Up to this moment, there has been no formal declaration of war against indiscipline. It is my pleasure, therefore, to declare today the launching day for the war against indiscipline.
The problems Ediago highlighted were real, and most of the solutions he suggested that day, including environmental sanitation days and queuing at bus stops, were laudable. The issue was how he and Buhari implemented their campaign. They pursued a brute force and highly physical campaign, which inevitably made them unpopular with ordinary Nigerians. People were locked up without trial, and anyone who criticized the government was ruthlessly dealt with. Politicians were arrested and detained without trial, in some cases for several years. A case in point was their bungled attempt to bring a gentleman called Umaru Dikko to justice.
The diplomatic storm that's come up suddenly between Britain and Nigeria could be the stuff of comic opera, except that no one involved is laughing. Nigeria early today ordered a British airliner carrying 244 people to return to Lagos soon after takeoff. Only tonight are passengers being allowed to depart on other flights. In London, some officials are linking this act with a bizarre kidnap attempt that backfired. The victim was an exiled Nigerian wanted back home in the worst way. The plot began to unravel when a suspicious British customs inspector ordered some airport crates to be opened. As Tom Fenton reports, his suspicions were justified.
At least 2 of the 3 men found in crates with the kidnapped Nigerian about to be loaded on board this plane for Lagos last night are believed to be Israeli mercenaries. In one crate, the drugged Nigerian Umaru Dikko was accompanied by a man carrying syringes he is believed to be Israeli. In a second crate were 2 other men, both fully conscious. One of these is also believed to be Israeli.
They were Arab-like.
Or Jew-like.
I beg your pardon?
Or Israeli-like.
Or Israeli-like, yes.
Middle Eastern.
I think Middle Eastern would be the best general description.
A former minister and leading politician, Dikko tops the new Nigerian government's list of most wanted men. In a country where corruption had become a way of life, Dikko stood out for the scale on which he operated. The military regime, which took over 6 months ago, charges that he stole more than $1 billion before he fled the country. Dikko's chief aim in exile has been to bring down the regime at any cost.
Any weapon that God gives me, I will use.
Yesterday, Dikko was neatly hustled into a van by 2 men in the street near his West End London home. It was a smooth, professional operation, but it went wrong at Stansted Airport last night. The Nigerian High Commission had not properly labeled the crates as diplomatic luggage and also bungled the required paperwork. Dikko is now recovering in a private ward under heavy guard. The new government so desperately wants him back, it may well have decided to go for the best and use agents from the country that kidnapped Adolf Eichmann. Nigeria's High Commissioner in London was summoned to the Foreign Office today, and there were lots of questions.
I'm not aware of that.
Tonight, there are still more questions than answers. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
Standing back and looking at that kidnap attempt, it was obvious that an administration that could organize and approve such an action had no respect for laws or due process. If Buhari and Idiagbo were allowed to stay in power, it was clear to their closest military colleagues that even they were not safe from brutal persecution. At the same time, the more ambitious generals who had helped to bring the regime to power had started to wonder why they were not running the country instead. Putting these 2 things together, it is no surprise that after 20 months in power, the Buhari-Idiagbo regime was overthrown in a coup arranged by their colleagues in the Supreme Military Council.
I know you can feel the magic, baby. Turn motherfucking lights down. Let's go. What up? What up, homie? I mean, it's what you expected, ain't it? Let's go. Turn the music up in the headphones. Yeah, that's perfect.
During the reign of 44-year-old Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, Nigeria hit new lows. Foreign debt ballooned to $33 billion. The exchange rate declined from almost 1-to-1 to 57 naira to the dollar, and corruption became a synonym for Nigeria. It's difficult to say whether Nigeria would have fared better if the Buhari-Idiagbo regime had stayed in power. as many external factors affected Nigeria's prospects during that time. However, it is clear that Babangida's ruling style, which was deft and tactical, seemed to be designed to ensure he remained in power, rather than aggressively deal with the issues the country was facing. One should be fair to him, however. His initial messages and actions were very positively received by the nation, especially when compared to what had been happening under Buhari and Idi Amin.
I'm pleased to take this opportunity to declare once again, therefore, that this administration attaches the greatest importance to constructive and helpful criticisms as well as the freedom of the press, and to declare further that the administration also attaches the greatest importance of fundamental human rights. A visible improvement in the standard of living of our people will not come overnight, of course. It is nonetheless feasible to take a meaningful action now which would alleviate the deprivation and misery of the large majority of our population within a short time. Thus, the administration will, in particular, take measures to check our galloping inflation and soaring unemployment.
An interesting feature of Babangida's takeover of government was that he facilitated the entry into power of a new crop of officers. Unfortunately for him, many of these officers would try and take power from him over the coming years. But it wasn't only within the military that discipline had started to break down. The economic and moral collapse in Nigeria had forced ordinary citizens to find new ways to support themselves.
America is such a land of opportunity, it continues to attract hard-working, honest immigrants from all over the world. But law enforcement officials say at least one country is sending not only honest immigrants, but many who seek a different kind of opportunity. Bob Fall continues our special investigative series, Cons, Scams, and Ripoffs.
No African nation has more people than Nigeria. No other has more of its people visit the United States, and according to law enforcement officials, no other turns so readily to crime. Call it the Nigerian Mafia.
The Nigerians have become what we term in law enforcement an emerging organized crime group.
Meet Akeem Salome, shown here collecting some of the $28,000 in student loans he got fraudulently, with 8 aliases. That's right, 8.
Nigerians are active in procuring student loan fraudulently. They seem to be more active than other nationality groups.
This Washington, D.C. mother who didn't want to be identified is part of what police say is another Nigerian fraud. She got $500 to marry, then divorce a Nigerian student so he could stay in the country. A scheme so lucrative, she went on to arrange dozens of quickie marriages for other Nigerians. Easy Credit, say the experts, has made it easy for Nigerians to rip off the system. Stealing carbon receipts or social security numbers, they apply for and get numerous credit cards, which they use to the limit.
I would characterize it a major economic problem.
Millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
Just from Nigerians.
Just from Nigerians.
And it's not just white-collar crime. Federal prosecutors say up to 90% of all heroin sold in the nation's capital is handled by Nigerians.
There is a large criminal element in the Nigerian community, sadly, that has devoted a great deal of time to heroin and cocaine smuggling into the United States.
No. It's not true.
The Nigerian government insists that 99% of Nigerians here are law-abiding. Many are victims, it says, of bias and sloppy police work.
They assume that any black man comes from Africa is a Nigerian. The fact that somebody is carrying a Nigerian passport does not necessarily mean he's a Nigerian.
If he is Nigerian, say students of the country, what he's learned is that corruption is a way of life in Nigeria, which pays.
The most successful people in the country tend to be those who've accumulated their fortunes in corrupt means, and therefore young people, students and other immigrants take their cue from that sort of social structure.
I've had many Nigerians tell me they love it here because there's no country on earth like America. It's so easy to steal. I hear that over and over again. It's so easy.
The tough talk by Secretary of State Schultz while in Nigeria elicited a Nigerian promise to crack down on drug trafficking. But it will take more than words, say police, to stop Akeem Salome and all the others.
Despite the obvious and enormous risk, many Nigerians continue to engage in these criminal activities simply because it was a better option. At least in a Western prison, they would have 3 square meals, pipe-borne water, and uninterrupted electricity. For those not brave enough to enter this international crime scene, all they could do was stay in Nigeria and suffer.
Every day my people they inside bus. Every day my people they inside bus. 49 sitting, 99 standing. Them go pack themselves in like sanding. Them they faint, them they wake like cock. Them go reach house water no day. Them go reach bed power no day. Them go reach road go slow go come. Them go reach road police go slap. Them go reach road army go whip. Them go look pocket money no day. Them go reach work query ready. Every day na the same thing. Every day na the same thing. Every day na the same thing.
With the state Nigeria was in, it was obvious that the military had not succeeded in rescuing the country from collapse. Corruption was still rife. Life for the ordinary citizen was worse than under Shagari, and Nigeria's external reputation was at an all-time low. It was clear that the military needed to go. So pressure was put on Babangida to begin a transition program which would hand power back to the civilians and create a third republic.
We don't want Babangida again, and we want MKO.
Who's MKO?
Abiola.
Back then, I also wanted MKO to be president. After all, he was a generally accepted winner of the Babangida organized and Babangida annulled Third Republic elections. It didn't matter that I did not know much about his policies, plans, or background. All I knew was that he was rich and gave money and gifts to everyone, even little boys like me. My views were illustrative of the attitude of the ordinary Nigerian back then. Expectations for a new government were low, and the focus was on electing someone who would not do much damage. A man as rich as MKO was, in our view, less likely to steal, and given his much talked about generosity, would continue to shower the ordinary citizen with gifts and promises. So it was simple. Give us MKO. But MKO was an unlikely savior. He was part of the establishment. His wealth was a direct result of his close ties with Shagari's government and the military after that. He had even been immortalized in a song by Fela.
Start them oppression, start them confusion, start them oppression, start to steal money, start to steal money like Obasanjo and Abiola. International TT. ITT. International TT. International.
I've been reading about ITT because they are the senior exploiters of this universe, of this world. I've had ITT stories all over the world, man. I've had the stories in America, in Europe, in Chile, all over. But I didn't know what ITT was about until I met MKO Abiola himself. Then I see the evil, the kind of multinational evil they are trying to do.
Despite the questionable sources of Abiola's wealth, we still wanted him, and he knew it.
Challenge General Babangida to walk on any street of Nigeria with me without security and see how long it will take people, before people actually lynch him. That is the type of leader that Babangida is.
It is still not clear today why Babangida and his supporters did not want to give power to Abiola, despite his obvious popularity and the fact he was one of their brothers in arms. Whatever the reason, the result of their actions was a worse outcome for Nigeria than anyone could have ever imagined.
nigga X about me, nigga X about me, nigga X about me, nigga X about me. I'm a hustler, I'm a hustler, homie. I'm a hustler, I'm a hustler, homie. Nigga X about me, nigga X about me. I'm a
The takeover of Nigeria by 50-year-old General Sani Abacha is an illustration of the quote, "From the frying pan to the fire." Babangida's continuing denial of the presidency to Abiola had put him in an untenable position. He had become deeply unpopular with the public and had lost the support of most of his military colleagues. He had to go and he knew it. So he went, but in his own special Maradona way, by installing a Harvard-trained industrialist and loyal ally to run what he called an interim government.
I, Ernest Adegunle Oladende Shonekon, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So help me God.
But ordinary Nigerians were not appeased and continued to demonstrate against the interim government. Aside from the demonstrations, it was also clear to the man on the street that this interim government was completely unconstitutional.
Interim is interim. Interim, from the way I look at it, is not a democratically elected civilian government. Interim means somebody is handpicked. Come and stay here. That, in other words, means installation.
With the continuing backlash against the interim government, something had to give, and give it did. Babangida, as part of the creation of the interim state, had made an unprecedented move and appointed a soldier as Minister of Defense. That soldier was Sani Abacha. Abacha's job was purportedly to watch over the interim government. That was like asking a wolf to watch your sheep. After only 3 months, Abacha forced Shonekon to resign and finally took power for himself.
This regime will be firm, humane, and decisive. We will not condone nor tolerate any act of indiscipline. Any attempt to test our will will be decisively dealt with. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
With those chilling words, Nigeria entered 5 years of brutal dictatorship. Abacha, unlike Babangida, did not suffer from a need to be liked, so he was particularly ruthless in removing all challenges and only surrounded himself with loyalists. His first target was Abiola, who had been going all over the country, declaring himself as president.
It will continue off and on until the military release the result of the June 12 election and put the democratically elected president, who is myself, in charge of affairs. I won't go to war. I won't encourage my supporters to go to war. I will fight for peace, and we will get peace. But you see, we do not want the peace of a graveyard, a peace whereby somebody continues to ride on the rest of us with a gun. We will get peace, but we'll get peace with decency and integrity and honesty and probity and democracy.
Abiola was eventually arrested from his home in Lagos by men from the secret police in June 1994. During his arrest, he made this call to the BBC.
What is happening at your house? Are you being arrested?
I'm being arrested. I'm just going out now with the police.
Hello?
You see, there's a large crowd here, and I was being escorted out to detention by singing the national anthem.
Why are they arresting you?
They are arresting me on an allegation of felony, nameless treason or something like that. They're not doing anything, they're just taking me away. Please let me go. You know, I'm
And so where are you now? Are you in your car?
I'm in my car now.
Is it police who are with you in your car, or are they escorted? Are they
Yes, the commissioner of police is in the car with me, and my senior wife is in the car with me.
Why are they letting you talk on the phone to the BBC while they're in the middle of arresting you?
They have come to arrest me, not to arrest my mouth.
You sound very cheerful about it, Chief Abiola.
Of course. You know, it is all part of democracy here.
And you're happy to go to the police and await whatever charges they're going to file against you?
I'm not in any way disturbed by it. Any sacrifice is in order. If it will bring democracy, peace and prosperity to Nigeria.
Is it possible to talk to the Commissioner of Police who's with you in the car?
I don't know if the Commissioner of Police is authorized to talk. He cannot talk to the press.
What is your advice now to your supporters, many of whom we heard a moment ago?
Well, I told them before I left home to just stay calm. It is very, very important that they stay calm.
So you're appealing for calm. You don't want them to take any direct action in your support?
No.
You still say you're the president of Nigeria, but it's not much good if you're going to be in jail.
Well, Mandela was in jail for 27 years. Kenyatta was in jail. I suppose that is one of the qualifications you need in this part of the world. Don't worry yourself, my friend.
That turned out to be his last interview. Abiola would die 4 years later, still in detention. With the Abiola problem resolved, Abacha then turned his attention to his military colleagues. Having participated in several coups, he was acutely aware of the need to consolidate his power. So he was quick to arrest and detain senior officers, whether active or retired, including Generals Obasanjo and Yar'Adua. His final focus was on critics of his government. Anyone who made a negative comment, be they journalists or ordinary citizens, were detained by his secret police and tortured. A particular example was his execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 other Ogoni leaders, a story of injustice which has been well covered, so I will not replay it here. So Abacha's time in power can be characterized thus: I came, I saw, I destroyed. If Buhari had taught Nigerians the meaning of fear, Abacha completely redefined it for them.
My people say they fear too much. We fear for the thing we no see. We fear for the air around us. We fear to fight for freedom. We fear to fight for liberty. We fear to fight for justice. We fear to fight for happiness. We always get reason to fear. We no one die. We no one wound. We no one quench. We no one go. I get one child. My mama different house. My pa different house. I want build a house. I don't build a house. I no one quench. I want enjoy. I no one go. So policeman go slap your face. You know go talk. Army man go whip your yash. You go they look like donkey. Rhodesia, they do them own, our leaders they have for nothing. South Africa, they do them own. Them live sorrow, tears and blood.
Given the terrible state of the country under Abacha, it is not surprising that during that time, Nigerians found God in a major way. But some had better reasons than others for finding God.
People in Nigeria, Christians, believers, I will give 80% the fact that they are running into Christ, because that is the essence of living. Without Christ, there is no life.
How can you begin to say everybody all of a sudden is having vision? And in that vision is still one thing, that they should be pastors, they should be evangelists, and it stands to reason it can't be true. Most of these are fake, false, product of the society. It's more of a problem of hunger and famine in the land. Everybody wants to make ends meet.
They are self-taught pastors, they are self-taught evangelists, and whatever name they want to call themselves. Even you've been hearing some of them calling themselves bishops, archbishops, but I'm yet to hear one of them calling himself Pope. Thank God. They draw people to themselves by claiming to work miracles. I think a lot of these miracles they claim, miracles in inverted commas, a lot of them are stage managed.
The Bible is about miracles. The whole of the book of Acts is the foundation of the church. And the Bible says that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. If he worked miracles in those days, then he should still be working miracles today, and he'll work miracles tomorrow.
Well, in the end, God did work a miracle in Nigeria by carrying out his own coup.
The key oil-producing country of Nigeria is in a state of flux. Its military leader, General Sani Abacha, has died of a heart attack. Abacha was 54. Top officials of the West African country convened an emergency meeting to sort out the question of succession. Who will run this country, long kept under Abacha's thumb?
The passing away of General Sani Abacha was almost as momentous an event for Nigeria as gaining independence. It meant that, once again, Nigerians could resume their struggle for democracy.
The struggle of the Democratic Front against Abacha has not been against him personally, but against military dictatorship. And there is only one cause for the military to follow, and that's to understand that they now have a very graceful, very fortunate way of retreating to the barracks and allowing the will of the Nigerian people to go forward.
The military decided to heed Soyinka's advice. They appointed 55-year-old Abdul Salami Abubakar, one of the few generals who had risen to the top without holding political office, to lead the country back to civilian rule. Abubakar immediately released some of the individuals who had been under detention by Abacha, one of whom was Obasanjo. Obasanjo had these comments to make after his release.
The moral standard in this country has come down. That was one thing that shocked me when I was in prison. Even the people that you think will stand for principle, they just fall like a pack of cards.
Have you found in the short time that you've been out of prison that this is reflected in society at large,
Yes,
that Nigeria is crumbling somehow?
Yes. The very few Nigerians now stand on principle. They will go for whatever they can get. Materialism. And they will try to rationalize what is not even rationalizable. Oh yes, we join Abacha because we think we could influence Abacha. And now who can tell you that he can reform devil? If it was possible for God to reform, he would have reformed Satan. And if God could not reform Satan, then anybody who thinks that he can reform an evil man is deceiving himself. He himself will become evil. And that's what has happened. Either voluntarily, or by association, or by compromising.
These are strong words you're using.
Yes, they are. But these are things that I believe.
Given the kind of comments Obasanjo was making, it was no surprise that he decided to run for president soon after, on a promise to clean up corruption and restore the moral standards of the nation.
We created an agency that will have nothing, its job will be to seek, to search, and to recover, both from within and from without. And it will have a tribunal to back it up.
But the other candidate was also making the same promises.
So the first thing to do about dealing with corruption is to have a president and a government that is transparent and straight.
Nigerians have heard all of this before.
Since 1966, every successive government that comes in, the first coup was to deal with corruption in Nigeria. And every other coup, they've said the same thing, that the previous regime was corrupt and we're coming to clean up.
It was true that we had heard it all before. It was also true that the presidential candidates were all part of the regimes that had created the problems that now needed to be solved. It would be more a selection than an election, but it would still be better than military rule. So Nigeria went to the polls and ushered in the Fourth Republic.
Ow! Oh! Woo! Swear it down! Yeah. I'm back! I'm back! I'm back! I'm back! I'm back! Get up!
In Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, Saturday marked a significant government transition. CNN's Catherine Bond reports on the country's first civilian president in 15 years.
That as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria,
A historic moment for Nigeria as Olusegun Obasanjo, retired general and chicken farmer, was sworn in to head only the third civilian government Nigeria has had in almost 40 years. In his inaugural speech, he promised concrete measures to tackle corruption, which he said had brought Nigeria to its knees.
the beneficiaries of corruption in all forms will fight back with all the foul means at their disposal. We shall be firm with them. There will be no sacred cows.
Seated behind bulletproof glass at the ceremony, South Africa's President Nelson Mandela. He was among guests who also included Prince Charles. This transfer of power is seen by many as the most positive development on the continent since the end of apartheid.
The other transfer of power from Abubakar, the general, to Obasanjo, the elected president, is as powerful as a shift from de Klerk to Mandela. And matter of fact, it's even bigger because in South Africa, 29 million people here, 130 million people.
It's no exaggeration to say this is a make or break opportunity for Nigeria. The start of a new civilian government, which, if it works, could create stability and recovery. But if it fails, will leave not just Nigerians, but many West Africans with little hope for the future. Catherine Bond, CNN, Abuja.
It is very pleasing to say that 8 years after that historic day, Nigeria is in a significantly stronger position. It was make or break, and we made it. Whether or not one gives the credit for that success to Obasanjo and his team, the facts are clear. External debt is now 4 billion from 35 billion. The Nigerian state now has a credit rating, facilitating access to international capital for Nigerian companies. Our foreign exchange reserves have risen to 40 billion from almost nil. The Nigerian stock market is up 900%, with significant investment inflows from both Nigerians and foreigners. GDP growth has been an average of 7% per annum, with a significant portion of that coming from non-oil sectors. New industries like mobile telecoms have been established with significant associated job creation. Foreign countries are even returning to Nigeria. There is an energy and vigor in the people, as well as return of confident expectation for the future. Probably most tellingly, Nigerians who left during the dark days have started to return home, as they see better opportunities at home than abroad. In simple terms, Nigeria is back. It is tempting to end our journey on that high note and celebrate the full circle we have traveled, but we can't and we shouldn't. This film is about truth and balance, and if there is something Nigeria lacks today, it is balance. Nigeria's rich have never been richer, yet its poor have never been poorer. 55% of the population is below the poverty line. Sometimes those abstract statistics are difficult to grasp, so see for yourself.
How much do they normally pay you for your work? For today, I'm getting 1,800. Just for the day. Is that your normal or is it better? No, it's a special duty, so okay, so it's better than normal. Yes. Normally, I think it's about 1,400.
1,400 naira is the equivalent of £7.20 per day, or £144 a month. Henry ate, traveled to work, and generally survived on that wage. But Henry was one of the better off people.
For a month, if you sell how much? For 1 month?
If you really know for that, I think it's 10,000.
If you sell 9,000 for the whole month?
Yeah.
Not enough money?
Safe, Nigeria, I understand Nigeria is too hard.
Nigeria too difficult, I mean.
It's too hard.
Thank you.
Uche made the equivalent of £40 a month, or £2 a day. It's amazing he could laugh at his situation. I couldn't. One can always argue that the cost of living in Nigeria is cheaper, so you shouldn't compare it to the UK. But the reality was earlier that day I had visited a fast food place on Victoria Island, an equivalent of McDonald's, to grab a snack. That snack cost me 3 times Uche's daily earnings. 55% of the population are like Henry and Uche. That is not abstract or difficult to grasp.
It's just that the situation in the country now is very critical. You have to really go down, swallow your pride and do whatever comes your way. Yes. You just have to put your qualification inside the cupboard, lock it up, and pick whatever job available to survive. That is just it.
Do what they can to survive, but their lives are still bleak. If things are bad for them, how do you think they are for their children? The reality is I don't see those children breaking out of that 55% poverty bracket, unless they do it by force. And maybe they will one day, like in the Niger Delta. The Niger Delta situation is just the beginning. If inequality persists in Nigeria, we can only expect more. So I close this film with a challenge to all those who care about Nigeria and its future. We have a duty to leave a better legacy for our successors. We have a responsibility to create a nation we can be proud of. We need to return to a place where to be Nigerian is to be great, where everyone enjoys a minimum standard of life, where the accident of birth is not the sole determinant of your prospects. We need to take our rightful place as the greatest black nation in the world. I have no magic solution for how we do this, but I know 2 things. 1, revolution starts with the individual. 2, right now, the wind is behind us. Thank you for your attention.
Now, my people, the time has come to rise and take our destiny into our hands. Look all over the world and you will find and a nation great was built by its people with love and sacrifice. You will find, and all they do, they place their country first and above all things. If we all do the same, I know and I believe we can make Nigeria great again. I believe we can do it. I believe we can now. Make Nigeria great again. I believe we can do it. I believe we can make it. I believe we can do it. The time is now. Set our hearts to it. Let's resolve from now on to do our best for Nigeria. If we do, we can be sure our dream to take flight. We will build a nation of our dreams. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Oh, I believe we can make it. The time is now. Set our hearts. I believe we can do it. I believe we can make it.
Once there's a good government in one African country, the whole of Africa will be liberated. See, we need one good government, a straight and progressive, clean government that knows what it's doing. No diplomacy, no compromises, no agreement, no Marxism, Leninism, no capitalism, Africanism.